Adventure. An adventure is a fun or exciting thing that you do.
A dangerous adventure floating on a mountain river. A dangerous adventure floating on a mountain river. A dangerous adventure floating on a mountain river. I can't wait to go on this adventure with you. I can't wait to go on this adventure with you. I can't wait to go on this adventure with you. I need some challenge or adventure in my life. I need some challenge or adventure in my life. I need some challenge or adventure in my life.
Approach. To approach something means to move close to it.
She approached closer to feed the squirrel. She approached closer to feed the squirrel. She approached closer to feed the squirrel. I repeat, you must not approach him. I repeat, you must not approach him. I repeat, you must not approach him. Approach with extreme caution. Approach with extreme caution. Approach with extreme caution.
Carefully. Carefully means with great attention, especially to detail or safety.
He carefully walked on the rope. He carefully walked on the rope. He carefully walked on the rope. I have carefully read the article you gave me. I have carefully read the article you gave me. I have carefully read the article you gave me. After you corrected me, I was listening very carefully. After you corrected me, I was listening very carefully. After you corrected me, I was listening very carefully.
Chemical. A chemical is something that scientists use in chemistry.
Many chemicals are toxic. Many chemicals are toxic. Many chemicals are toxic. This chemical indeed constituted a hazard to the environment. This chemical indeed constituted a hazard to the environment. This chemical indeed constituted a hazard to the environment. We actually use a highly toxic chemical. We actually use a highly toxic chemical. We actually use a highly toxic chemical.
Create. To create means to make something new.
God created the earth in 7 days. God created the earth in 7 days. God created the earth in 7 days. I can create problems for you. I can create problems for you. I can create problems for you. He will never create his empire. He will never create his empire. He will never create his empire.
Evil. Evil describes something or someone bad or cruel, not good.
Use the mirror to turn into a painting from good to evil. Use the mirror to turn into a painting from good to evil. Use the mirror to turn into a painting from good to evil. I am the evil spirit, who tries to separate them. I am the evil spirit, who tries to separate them. I am the evil spirit, who tries to separate them. It's got some sort of evil power. It's got some sort of evil power. It's got some sort of evil power.
Experiment. An experiment is a test that you do to see what will happen.
The student did an experiment in science class. The student did an experiment in science class. The student did an experiment in science class. What we saw was a natural experiment. What we saw was a natural experiment. What we saw was a natural experiment. I'd like to conduct a little experiment. I'd like to conduct a little experiment. I'd like to conduct a little experiment.
Kill. To kill someone or something is to make them die.
A cruel husband was jealous of his wife and wanted to kill her. A cruel husband was jealous of his wife and wanted to kill her. A cruel husband was jealous of his wife and wanted to kill her. I knew you couldn't kill him. I knew you couldn't kill him. I knew you couldn't kill him. Please do not let him kill me. Please do not let him kill me. Please do not let him kill me.
Laboratory. A laboratory is a room where a scientist works.
My mother works in a laboratory. My mother works in a laboratory. My mother works in a laboratory. The laboratory is busy now on a new scientific experiment. The laboratory is busy now on a new scientific experiment. The laboratory is busy now on a new scientific experiment. I demand you give me access to your laboratory. I demand you give me access to your laboratory. I demand you give me access to your laboratory.
Laugh. Laugh is the sound made when someone is happy or a funny thing occurs.
The girl laughed when Dad hugged her. The girl laughed when Dad hugged her. The girl laughed when Dad hugged her. I mean a laugh from the heart. I mean a laugh from the heart. I mean a laugh from the heart. I never thought I'd hear that laugh again. I never thought I'd hear that laugh again. I never thought I'd hear that laugh again.
Loud. If a sound is loud, it is strong and very easy to hear.
The man's voice was so loud that we all could hear him. The man's voice was so loud that we all could hear him. The man's voice was so loud that we all could hear him. He always had such a loud voice. He always had such a loud voice. He always had such a loud voice. Actually, we heard a loud noise. Actually, we heard a loud noise. Actually, we heard a loud noise.
Nervous. When a person is nervous, they think something bad will happen.
The man became nervous when he heard the news. The man became nervous when he heard the news. The man became nervous when he heard the news. You were so nervous that day. You were so nervous that day. You were so nervous that day. The boys are a bit nervous. The boys are a bit nervous. The boys are a bit nervous.
Noise. A noise is an unpleasant sound.
He wore headphones to protect his ears from noise. He wore headphones to protect his ears from noise. He wore headphones to protect his ears from noise. Science tells us that noise is unhealthy. Science tells us that noise is unhealthy. Science tells us that noise is unhealthy. Because you're making too much noise. Because you're making too much noise. Because you're making too much noise.
Project. A project is a type of work that you do for a school or a job.
His afternoon work project was to paint the room green. His afternoon work project was to paint the room green. His afternoon work project was to paint the room green. The project was completed in 2012 and is now established as an independent project. The project was completed in 2012 and is now established as an independent project. The project was completed in 2012 and is now established as an independent project. This is a large project, where each working group works at its own smaller project. This is a large project, where each working group works at its own smaller project. This is a large project, where each working group works at its own smaller project.
Scare. To scare someone is to make them feel afraid.
They put a scarecrow in the garden to scare the birds. They put a scarecrow in the garden to scare the birds. They put a scarecrow in the garden to scare the birds. My uncle was scared by what he saw in the room. My uncle was scared by what he saw in the room. My uncle was scared by what he saw in the room. I'm not here to scare you. I'm not here to scare you. I'm not here to scare you.
Secret. A secret is something that you do not tell other people.
She told her biggest secret. She told her biggest secret. She told her biggest secret. You never told me your secret. You never told me your secret. You never told me your secret. The two boys were sharing a secret. The two boys were sharing a secret. The two boys were sharing a secret.
Shout. To shout is to say something loudly.
The boss was angry and shouted at the employee. The boss was angry and shouted at the employee. The boss was angry and shouted at the employee. I didn't mean to shout at you. I didn't mean to shout at you. I didn't mean to shout at you. I have decided to shout whenever you approach. I have decided to shout whenever you approach. I have decided to shout whenever you approach.
Smell. To smell something means to use your nose to sense it.
She smelled the flower. She smelled the flower. She smelled the flower. I don't need to smell it. I don't need to smell it. I don't need to smell it. He loves to smell my hair. He loves to smell my hair. He loves to smell my hair.
Terrible. If something is terrible, it is very bad.
After the earthquake, the city became a terrible ruin. After the earthquake, the city became a terrible ruin. After the earthquake, the city became a terrible ruin. You know, I've had the most terrible day. You know, I've had the most terrible day. You know, I've had the most terrible day. What was that terrible noise? What was that terrible noise? What was that terrible noise?
Worse. If something is worse, it is of poorer quality than another thing.
Financial indicators were getting worse and worse. Financial indicators were getting worse and worse. Financial indicators were getting worse and worse. The situation in Europe is much worse than you realize. The situation in Europe is much worse than you realize. The situation in Europe is much worse than you realize. I can't imagine anything worse. I can't imagine anything worse. I can't imagine anything worse.
The laboratory. Mia's father had a laboratory, but she had no idea what was in it. Her dad always closed and locked the door when he went in. She knew that he used it to do projects for work. He never told Mia what these projects were. One night, Mia approached the door to the laboratory. She stopped and thought, I wonder what crazy experiment he is doing now. Suddenly, she heard a loud noise. It sounded like an evil laugh. The noise scared her, so she walked quickly back to her room. The next night, her friend Liz came to her house. When Liz arrived, Mia told her about the night before. "Oh, it was terrible," she said. "Why don't we see what is in there?" Liz asked. "It will be a fun adventure." Mia felt nervous about going into her father's laboratory, but she agreed. As always, the door was locked. They waited until Mia's father left the laboratory to eat dinner. "He didn't lock the door," Liz said. "Let's go." The laboratory was dark. The girls walked down the stairs carefully. Mia smelled strange chemicals. What terrible thing was her father creating? Suddenly, they heard an evil laugh. It was even worse than the one Mia heard the night before. What if a monster was going to kill them? Mia had to do something. She shouted for help. Mia's father ran into the room and turned on the lights. "Oh no," he said. "You must have learned my secret." "Your monster tried to kill us," Mia said. "Monster?" he asked. "You mean this?" He had a pretty doll in his hands. The doll laughed. The laugh didn't sound so evil anymore. "I made this for your birthday. I wanted to give it to you then, but you can have it now. I hope you like it."